The views, comments, and opinions of the following program do not necessarily reflect those of Morris Media Studios, MorrisMediaLive.com, or its affiliates. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to Melanated Politics. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please call in live at area code 323-293-3375. With me, as always, from the D.C. area is David Harper, and I am Eric Clark from Compton, California. Ladies and gentlemen, let's go.
Well, first and foremost, happy 2019.
Happy 2019.
Happy 2019, and I have a quick question. Is Donald Trump going to be reelected?
Seriously.
Seriously.
Absolutely, yes. Check this out. All it would take is for every single registered white voter to go ahead and cast a vote for Donald John Trump. That's all it would take. Remember, 53% of white women voted for Donald Trump even after the video came out regarding access. I'll grab a woman by the private parts. They still voted for Donald Trump. Also, the evangelical community, they have Donald Trump's back like a professional security guard. Bottom line, okay, Manifest Destiny, the platform that America was founded on, the evangelical community considers him to be the spokesman of that, so that will continue on. They will vote for Donald Trump. Bottom line.
That's true. I can't argue that. One thing I will say is that I think that his support is waning a little bit depending on the region. Like what you said about Christian evangelicals, you are absolutely right. And that Bible Belt is locked. It's not going nowhere. That Bible Belt. Now there are parts of the belt, like from Virginia to some of North Carolina, is getting a little worn. But from Mississippi, Texas, Tennessee, oh yeah, they're going to be lockstep. Now in the Midwest, it might be a little different. It might be just a little bit different. It might surprise you. Because one thing that I realized through this whole Trump saga, I hate to say, his presidency, because it just doesn't feel right. It's like the most embarrassing time ever. The one thing I'll say is that it's fascinating to see white people get embarrassed by him. You know what I mean? Have you seen that? I know I've seen it. Have you seen it? I mean, at least a little bit. White folks there's some that love him, but there's some that really embarrassed by him. There's some that are really embarrassed by him, and you could see that during the last midterms, like in states like Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, particularly in those states. The white vote changed just a little bit. Don't get me wrong, a large portion of them still like him, but there was some that's like, you know what, we did it the first time.
Okay, would this character matter or does character not matter? Are they holding everyone accountable for the same actions? We won't go down a list of what this guy has done because it's obvious. It's been well reported. It's been well documented what this guy's done. As a matter of fact, we all can recall, I'm going to hire the best people, the very best of the very best of the very best of the very best. What has happened thus far? Individuals in the Trump administration, even top officials, they've either been fired, either they've quit, or some even have pled guilty to crimes.
There's no argument there. I 1,000% agree with you. There's no reason. Well, this is the reason why he was never qualified to be president. This is the reason why, fine, for entertainment purposes, let him have his show, The Apprentice, and say you're fired. But, I mean, to be president is shameful. But there were people, particularly in the South, and I gotta say in the Midwest a bit. Definitely the Midwest, because Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Iowa, all went for Trump in 2016. They just looked beyond that. They looked beyond that. I can say that in the 2016 presidential election, Hillary Clinton didn't really have strong support on the believability factor.
Let me tell you something. If President Obama would have made an announcement. He have just taken a shower. The Republicans said, wait a minute, we need to see the bar soap.
They would say that. I agree. I'm not arguing that. But what I'm trying to tell you is that there's people that's still embarrassed by it. Now, is it a chance he can get elected? Absolutely. I'm not saying he can't, but you know, I believe in the best of people. I believe that some people, I'm talking about white folks. I'm hoping that white folks look back and say, you know what, that's too much for me. I can't even take it no more.
Well, congratulations. Round of applause for the optimism. Nevertheless, 70% of Donald Trump's base, he has an approval rating with this crowd, with this base, after everything we've just expressed.
And you're right. You're absolutely right. But again, the strongest part of that base is the Bible Belt, and that's for a reason. That's for the reason. Think about it. Think about this. In the South, they reenact the Civil War. There's a longing for that time. Like, black people, do we ever reenact Dr. King getting shot? Like, have I ever called you and said, hey, let's go to your balcony, you play Jesse, and we're going to point? We don't do that. But in the South, there's a longing, and that's where the strength of his support is. If you think about it, Wyoming's not in the South, but it's very white. 35%. West Virginia, 31%. Alabama, plus 29%. Tennessee, plus 23%. Louisiana, plus 20. That's plus 21%. That's the bulk of his evangelical. The bulk of the strength of that the white folks that'll jump off a cliff for the dude. That's there. I'm not saying it.
But they would push Obama off that same cliff had he done the same thing.
No, they would shoot him first, then push him. Let's just be honest. They would shoot him first, then push him. They're not just going to push him and be like, here. They're going to shoot him first, curse at him, then push him. I mean, President Obama, look, in all reality, President Obama was one of the most distinguished presidents in history. Just because of how he came up through the ranks, his background, his pedigree as far as college, his community service, all of that. His wife, need I say no more, his wife.
So let the crowd, let our viewers, you guys, ladies and gentlemen, you've heard it first. Donald J. Trump will be reelected for everything that we have explained and everything else that has just basically been facts. You can't argue with the facts.
Not arguing with the facts. There's a very good chance he can get reelected. But again, like I said before, one thing that gives me hope is that numbers don't lie. I go back to the midterm elections. The midterm elections where in the state of Michigan, the Democrats won the governorship and state houses. In Wisconsin, the Democrats won the governorship and state houses. In Pennsylvania, they already went Democrat during the time. So the reason why I say that is because in order for him to win, he has to win that Midwest.
I get that.
If he doesn't win the
Midwest. But you recall his campaign promise. You recall the chant of the crowd, build that wall, build that wall, build that wall. Yes. You remember that chant?
I do.
So immigration is also taught. Not only has immigration closed the government down, which we will get into that in our next segment.
Right.
But immigration plays an important part, and his Trump supporters view immigration as a very important part, the wall, et cetera, the symbolism of that, we'll get into it later. But as a matter of fact, RHQ, they were in Arizona. If you can recall, they were in Arizona where they literally interviewed Trump supporters because, see, sometimes you have to hear it in a person's own words. So, as I said, in Arizona, RHQ, they had a special where they interviewed Trump supporters on immigration. We've obtained a small sample. Let's go ahead and check it out.
Rile up a crowd, generally, and people like to watch that.
White people don't produce enough children. If you look at the demographics, they have abortion and the blacks. So when you do that, you need population growth. You need roughly 1.6 or more in order for the economy to grow. And since we're not producing enough, or we are aborting them, so you have no other choice except to bring in new blood and young people, and the Europeans are not coming over, so what's left is what you see.
So a lot of these people are fleeing horrific political situations themselves and seeking asylum. You still think that we should shoot
if they just shot at them a few times, they would go back.
The rule of law needs to supersede all these emotions. Yes, there's emotions. And, you want to focus on separation of families. And we know there's strategies where they bring children. That's a strategy. But truly, come the legal way. Come the legal way. And we have hearts.
Okay. It's so much there. Let's just focus on it being Arizona. Arizona is a border state. And again, the strength of his support for the border wall is strongest in the South. But the funny thing about Arizona, fun fact, in 2017, Donald Trump's support was 55% approved, 35% disapproved. In 2018, it's 47% approved, 49% disapprove. So even in those states where you have the border wall, and we just saw some folks saying out their own mouths, white folks aren't having enough babies, and if they came here the right way, that's not logic. That's xenophobia. That's fear. But that fear in that part of the country has been there for so long. That anxiety, and I'll go as far to say that the anxiety of Donald Trump becoming president again is just as strong, if not stronger, as their anxiety of brown folks, black and brown folks running this country. The browning of the country, as you like to say, the browning of the country.
The browning of America.
The browning of America. That's all that's about. And when you hear it straight no chaser from those Trump supporters who, if that could be in Arizona, that could be in Texas, that could be in Alabama. I mean, it's huge. That could be in Tennessee. That's definitely in West Virginia. It's definitely in parts of Georgia, parts of Florida. But that sentiment is being challenged and is shrinking. And that's why I think his reelection is going to be a challenge. In those states, it's going to be a tightrope because, again, going back to the midterm elections in 2018, just this past 2018, a Democratic senator, won the state of Arizona in Jeff Flake's old seat.
Okay.
And that's statewide. These are Trump's supporters going against the Democrat, and the Democrats still won. Now, the Democrats lost in Tennessee. Tennessee's still Tennessee. A Democrat lost in Mississippi. That's not going to happen. Democrat lost in we know Stacey Abrams lost in Georgia. She got really close. And in Georgia, Trump's support is plus 3%.
That video is also so important. And it's imperative that we show that video because the reason why we have two ears and one mouth is because we're supposed to listen more than talk. And when people tell you how they feel, take a time out and go ahead and listen. So it was very important that we heard it from the words of the Trump supporters. And that's always been a fact of life. That's always been the script of the Trump administration. And this is not new. Donald Trump is just a representation of, you said the old South, but I say just America in
right.
general.
You're right. That's a better point.
So I do believe he will be reelected. When you consider the gerrymandering, when you consider all the issues that African Americans or black people have to go through to vote, okay, redistricting, et cetera, the polls closing early, souls to the polls that has been eliminated in so many states. When you add that with the resurrection of the white vote as it pertains to Trump energy, let's go out and vote. Donald Trump, he understands us. He gets us. He speaks his mind. They believe in this guy. He said if he shot someone in the street, he'll still get a vote. Before he was elected. What happened after that? He was elected.
So here's my question to you. Do you know that Donald Trump vote is strong, but do you believe there's enough white voters in the country that say it's too far?
No.
Okay. That's fair. I can't argue that.
What more physical or circumstantial evidence do we need to see? Look at the excuses that they make for. Maybe he just doesn't understand. Maybe he doesn't get it. He's new at this, et cetera. This guy is a 70-year-old man that was handed $200 million by his dad.
Right.
And he's still alive.
Right.
That doesn't happen unless you have some sort of common sense.
Right.
Of course, he's well connected, et cetera. But we need to stop making excuses for Donald J. Trump.
Do you think,
if you're right, you're right. You're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. It's a character issue. The same type of accountability that we all hold ourselves to, ourselves, our children, our friends, our spouses, etc. Why can't we hold Donald Trump to that same character, moral standard, ethical standard?
It's his privilege, of course. It's his privilege, and people right now are great example. Really quick, great example. The defenders of Brett Kavanaugh. You had women come up say, boys will be boys. This guy was so unqualified to be a Supreme Court justice. But you had women, some senators, Senator Collins of Maine, women defending him. And I think that same mentality, that same defense goes to Trump.
And that's why what you're saying is very important. Donald Trump selected 2 Supreme Court justices. So when all these different laws are passed, when the Congress puts a bill out there, when it goes to the Senate, when it's either signed or not signed by Donald Trump, if at all goes to the Supreme Court is what, 5-4 now?
5-4, yeah.
With the Republicans having the advantage.
Mm-hmm.
So they have the advantage. So he's kept his promises. Now, of course, he said Mexico will pay for the wall, and now he's asking the taxpayers to pay $5 billion for the wall. Also, they're not calling it a wall. Barriers,
yeah.
Border security. So.
Which goes to the shutdown. We have a government shutdown over anxiety, over racial anxiety. That's basically what the shutdown is. I mean, you have a shutdown right now over a fictitious wall, over a wall that they feel will block, people of a different hue, different skin tone from coming into the country.
Well, let me ask you this: can't there just be a CR?
It could be a CR. For those who don't know, a CR is a continuing resolution. It's basically it's an agreement for the government to stay open while they work out whatever issues they have. And the reason why they aren't doing a CR is because Donald Trump has dug in his heels. But the new Democrats, the new Democratic House with the leader Nancy Pelosi, signed a spending bill. Okay. They already had that's why they're having a meeting now. They have a spending bill to reopen the government, put people back to work, and that spending bill also has funding for HBCUs. It also has it has something in there to reopen the basically strengthen the Voting Rights Act. That's what they had in a bill, thanks to the CBC, which is a whole other conversation we'll have next week. Congressional Black Caucus, for those who don't know. The new spending bill had a lot in it to open the government and to move things forward. But Donald Trump is caught in a rock and a hard place for his base, for his undenying loyal base.
So as you know today, Donald Trump has called certain Democrats to the White House. They're going to discuss a plan to go ahead and open up the government once again. What do you think about that? Do you think there will be the government will open back up? I mean, with regards to bipartisanship, or do you think Donald Trump's heels will be dug in as far as this symbolic wall?
Short answer is I don't know. Donald Trump is not a logical person. He's not a practical person. He is an emotionally unbalanced person that probably needs a lot of therapy and maybe a little bit of medication. I mean, that's just the kind of person he is. He's not even ideological. He's an opportunist. And I don't know what kind of opportunity it may present himself for him to say, yes, I'll take a deal. Because the biggest thing Donald Trump is facing right now is, one, not losing support for his base, because that's the only thing he has against Mueller for the Mueller investigation. Two, if he doesn't want to seem weak, he's a very very emotionally sensitive person. I can't just say man, I can say person. He's an emotionally being. He's an emotionally sensitive being.
Do you get this from his Twitter account, or is this fake news you're talking about?
This is oh my goodness, fake news. But going back to his supporters, they believe that. There's sidebar. There are people in the media that have felt threatened when going to Trump rallies because of his supporters saying, "Hey, you're fake news. You're not real. You're not for us. So we'll attack you." But going back to that influences decision making. Donald Trump basically needs to know he's won. He needs to know he's on top. He needs to know that he's right. So if he backs down, like basically what happened before the government shut down, he was going to agree to a CR. The Republican-led House got the Democrats on board for the CR. The Senate, Mitch McConnell and the senators and Chuck Schumer agreed to the CR. And the continuing resolution, and the only reason why he didn't just open the government and keep the government open and sign the continuing resolution was because Ann Coulter, Rush Limbaugh,
yes,
and other hard right-leaning conservative talk radio show pundits said he would be betraying his base, saying he was just a joke or a sham of a president. When they said that, that's when he said, "No, I'm not going to do this."
But they reframed the whole narrative. They reframed the whole argument. Now they're saying border security as well as barriers. But like I said earlier in the show, build that wall, build that wall. We heard that chant.
We heard it
on most of the Trump rallies when he was running for the presidency. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we heard that chant. So the wall it's also symbolic. There's a lot of symbolism regarding that wall. Now, a lot of the far right, they assume that, let's just say hypothetically, the people from South and Central and Latin America, they actually get here, they become citizens, et cetera, or they just get it. They automatically assume that they will vote as a Democrat. They automatically assume that they will disagree with Republican ideologies and policies. So that's one of the reasons why they don't want them to come also. Also, their mentality is, hey, it's all about the numbers. There is no way on God's earth that they are – look, 62% of the American population is white, is Caucasian. 17% is Hispanic. 13% is black, okay? 5% is Asian. 2% is multiracial. And 1% is Native American. What do you think about that, Mr. Harper?
I think those numbers are accurate, but a lot of the truth in the numbers on where this election is going to go is going to depend on, again, how many white folks are going to break off and say enough is enough. And again, to me, just in my opinion, I think it's going to be regional. The strongest support of white voters, and it goes hand in hand, are evangelical, which they are in the South, are what you call hardline conservatives, hardcore conservatives. And I'll go as far as to say that they're cut from the same cloth. I know a lot of people might find this controversial, but just being honest, they're cut from the same cloth as the segregationists, as the slave owners, as the landowners, as the people.
What do you think that make America great again? What do you think that means? We're all going to go to Magic Mountain or Disneyland, go get on the ride and order some candy, some cotton candy. What is that supposed to mean?
Make America great again. It means taking it back to the past. It means taking it back to when America was the way America was in the 40s, 50s, 60s. I don't believe it. 60s was such a challenging time, hard time.
Well, by law, we couldn't vote until
we couldn't vote. But that's the America that they talk like when you have Christian evangelicals say that a man who you said clearly said on video that he can grab a woman's private parts at any time and can do anything, or say he can shoot somebody on the street and not get locked up, they still vote for me. There is nothing about that language that says anything about God. There's nothing godly about
But if
that.
you already have in your psyche, he's going to build these walls. He's going to keep these Latinos, Hispanics out. If that's in your psyche, if it's in your psyche, he's going to make America great again, which basically means make America mostly white again. Then obviously they'll vote for this man again.
Right.
So all these things were taken into consideration. They bypassed it. Every single act that he did that was immoral, that was unethical, people bypassed it, and they voted for Donald Trump. As I said prior, 53% of white women voted for Donald Trump.
Which is wild, which is crazy. I mean, for 53% of mothers of you think about these women are moms. They're women that supposedly believe in protecting their family.
If President Obama would have said half the things Donald Trump said, they would have built a new prison and put Obama in there by himself.
President Obama, I hate putting President Obama and Donald Trump in the same conversation because they're light years away, but you know it's nowhere near close. Donald Trump became a reality off of two things. He became a reality when the Republican Party made Sarah Palin legitimate. When they made basically people or people in public office or people in general who may not be qualified to hold office, made them legitimate. And that's where everything just went sideways after that. And then when President Obama won re-election in 2012 against Mitt Romney.
Well, whether people support President Obama or not, whether people voted for President Obama or not, we are addressing the hypocrisy of the Trump administration, the things he has been able to get away with that President Obama would have never gotten away with. And I'm not making the conversation about President Obama. His presidency is a different conversation. I'm pointing out the accepted, outright, clear hypocrisy by the Trump voters. Things they would never have allowed President Obama to do. They're allowing him to do this. So what I'm doing is I'm just giving a few facts of why Donald Trump will be elected, how it has to do with the government shutdown, how the symbolic wall has plenty to do with the government shutdown. I mean, there's so many. You can go on YouTube. You can go on so many different platforms and just listen to the Trump supporters. You had people that owned a resort in Minnesota close the resort, so no, I think the Mexicans going to sneak in here and take a swim in the lake because they're on their way because of the caravan. So the government shutdown, he's unapologetic. Even if you recall, he said, I take complete ownership for the government shutdown.
He did say that.
As a matter of fact, in 2013, he said President Obama needs to own the shutdown.
He did say that too.
Hypocrisy.
It's hypocrisy is, I mean, you're right. But I guess where my thought process is, in my opinion, and I have to go to back to Michigan, Pennsylvania, and particularly Wisconsin. I have to go back there. I have to, because those particular voters. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying the wall. I couldn't tell you what percentage of the wall and what percentage of jobs, because I can tell you in the Midwest, with the auto industry, Ford, GM, Chrysler, the Midwest is a very different dynamic, because that was the heartbeat of the country as far as industrial businesses, manufacturing businesses. And when he talked about NAFTA, because NAFTA hurt people, when he talked about NAFTA and saying he was going to,
staying on the government shutdown. Okay?
Yes, let's stay on
the government shutdown. How does that affect government workers? How does the government the government shutdown, currently speaking, how does that affect the average American? Whether it's a Coast Guard, whether it's just a typical federal worker, how does that affect the shutdown of the government? How does that affect these people, literally? And also, if it affects them in a negative way, should they go ahead and vote for Donald Trump, and will they? But go ahead and start off with how does it affect your average American?
Okay, first and foremost, the government shutdown affects the average American in two ways. For the government worker, I'll start with them because they're not working. They're talking about them not being able to take care of their families, not being able to provide for their loved ones, pay rent, pay bills. And I know there's a talking point that they call it inconsequential workers.
Yes.
There's a percentage of government work that it doesn't matter, but those people have lives. So that's one angle from the government worker perspective. Now, for the everyday American, for someone who doesn't work in government, for someone who doesn't work in Washington, for someone who's not a part of the government, believe it or not, you are part of the government because the people that inspect your food, the people that inspect environmental, the water, the air quality, people that that check for different safety standards on roads and a million other things that government is involved in. See, this is where government is good. It's important to have checks and balances. We're not being protected. Now the military is running fine. Coast Guard not so much, but in general, just daily inspections, daily protections for the average American citizen is not happening now. And that's the effect of the government shutdown. And you may not feel it. You may not feel it this month or next month, but believe me, you're going to start feeling it. If you get sick off of some water you're drinking, if you wondering why does the air look the way it does? That doesn't like a regular cloud is in the air,
Yesterday, if you can recall, when you and I were doing our grassroots work,
Mm-hmm.
I actually spoke with a young lady on the East Coast. Her husband was a Coast Guard. And I posed the question. I said, are you still like getting a paycheck? She said, we'll get one more. And it's only because it's within the budget right now. She said, but you know what, Eric? Next week within the next week or two, we won't receive a dime. So
that goes right into
now everything you just said, everything you just expressed, how everything affects negatively the average American. Is it worth it? I mean, why would Donald Trump shut down the government if this affects his quote unquote so-called base and he cares so much about America, the military, the Coast Guard, the average American?
Okay. You and I know this, and I don't want to be offensive, but I'll just say most people know that Donald Trump really doesn't care about you and me. He only cares about himself. And basically people who support him aren't thinking practically, logically.
Wait a minute. You sure he doesn't care? Look, man, I received a Kwanzaa card in the mail. It didn't have any name on it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's safe to assume it didn't come from Donald Trump.
No, it didn't come. I'm pretty sure it didn't come from Donald Trump. I'm pretty positive that Kwanzaa card did not come from Donald Trump. But the reason why people vote for him is because it's an emotional, it's a visceral thing. It's not a lot. Donald Trump, there's nothing that he said on his stump speech. Because this goes to going back to the election in 2016, and also in the government shutdown. There's nothing that Donald Trump has said to really further or help people. He's helped the pockets of some rich people, but he hasn't helped the everyday person. But people don't care because emotionally he makes them feel a certain way. It goes back to what
and he said. He also was quoted as saying, "You had government workers that called him and said, 'This is great. We are so happy. You shut the government down, build that wall. So, it affect the government shutdown. It's going on right now. As we said prior, the Democrats are meeting with Donald Trump, right? Where they met with him. I don't know if it's over, but
I think it's still going on. Before we came in.
And right now, ladies and gentlemen, we have a phone call, a caller coming in. Caller, welcome to Melanated Politics. You are live. Go ahead, please.
Hello, Mr. Eric. This is your good friend, Kevin. How you doing today?
Fantastic, Kevin. Welcome to Melanated Politics, and thank you so much for calling in. Happy New Year as well, Kevin.
Same to you. It's my pleasure to call, as always. My question is, what is your key topic of the day? I know it's regarding, we talked earlier about Trump's possible re-election. And my Wi-Fi is down, so I really couldn't hear the show in context. So I was just asking what would be the key point that we were discussing earlier.
Well, the key point we were discussing earlier is we believe that Donald Trump will be re-elected as the president of the United States due to a few factors. 53% of white women voted for Donald Trump, even after he made a statement on Access Hollywood that he would grab a woman by the you-know-what. Also, 70% of Donald Trump's supporters still, he has an approval rating with 70% of his supporters, of his voters, so that's also a fact. Also, look at the economy right now. On paper, the economy is doing well. On paper, the unemployment rate is down. On paper, we all know that is a reflection of the Obama administration. So just to put a cap on the question, number one, Donald Trump will be reelected. Also, since the government is shut down right now, and we'll see what happens with that, the government shutdown is very important. So that's something we are speaking on as well. And before the show ends, we also will, we would be remiss if we didn't talk about the opposition of Donald Trump and different Democrats that will run against Donald Trump and what their plans are and what their policies may or may not be. But those are the topics. And thanks again for calling in the Melanated Politics. Did I answer your question? Did I answer your question, Kev? I know that was a little long-winded, but did I answer your question?
Yes, you did, and I have a limited time, but I'd like to offer a little insight, and those are some key topics that we all should listen to and discuss. In terms of Donald Trump's re-election, it's a possibility based on the Electoral College, which I think should be eliminated and just go by strictly popular vote, because he won the election with a deficit of popular vote of 3 million or more. And I think it requires a constitutional amendment in order to do so. I'm not clear on that, and don't quote me, but that's going to be necessary, and I think it would be by virtue of a really strong, fully Democratic Congress to do so. But at the same time, he's lost some of his support because of his policies have alienated, such as those who are now defending Obamacare, those who have been hurt by his trade tariffs indirectly, and other policies that have really been adverse. And I think he was really elected by stoking hate and fear from those who were rabid and foaming at the mouth in that regard already.
Well, Kevin, let's get straight to the point, because I have a question for you.
Hey, how's it going, Kevin? Happy New Year. This is David.
Hey, David, how you doing? Happy New Year to you, my man.
Thank you, sir.
Bottom line, let's peel the scab off. Yes or no? Will Donald John Trump, will this man be re-elected in 2020? Bottom line.
I don't think so, and I think women will be the difference in the millennials, those who really didn't come out the last time in their rejection of Hillary in favor of Bernie. I think they'll realize that the lesser of two evils will be anything besides Trump. I'm thinking that'll be the deal breaker. And that may even be occurring in those few swing states where the electoral votes went to Trump, because if you look at the midterm blue wave, in a lot of those areas, there were elections of people in states Democrat that Trump had carried significantly previous. So I don't think his re-election is that clear-cut and dry. It's a possibility, but I feel personally it's a low probability.
Kevin, can I just say this? I'm happy I'm not alone in that feeling. Nice to know that there's some optimism with me. It feels good. Thank you, sir.
And also, David Harper has a question for you. We don't have a lot of time yet left. Melanated Politics. If anyone else wants to call in live, 323-293-3375. We have my friend, Professor Kevin, on the line calling in. David Harper has a question for you. Go ahead, David.
Kevin, as always, great to talk with you.
Likewise.
Quick question. What Democrat, in your opinion, has the best chance of beating, I know it's early, but of beating Donald Trump? Like you said, with the Electoral College, that definitely, the Democrats are going to win the popular vote most likely, but we're talking about the Electoral College game. Real quick, what do you think?
I would think O'Rourke. And the reason I say him is because, number one, because of his fundraising ability. Number two, he really came close in a state that was historically red, to the point now where it's kind of deemed a purple state in a transition. And third, and most of all, he's Obama-ish in the kind of favor he can raise with people, and he has Obama's strong support.
Now, do you also,
and
Kevin?
anytime you have President Obama in your corner, he's a real influential factor, as we know based on history.
And you don't think
And I
this?
think
You don't think
that's
this just
what put
because
him
you're
on
from?
top.
You don't, Kevin. You don't think this just because you're from Texas, correct?
No, not at all. I have no partisan affiliation with Texas that's been historically Republican. No.
Okay.
I'm just looking at it objectively from what I see as political dynamics occurring in the background.
Man, Kev, thanks so much. We really appreciate you calling in. Thanks for your insight. It's a pleasure to talk to you always, and we appreciate you calling in.
Same here, and I look forward to discussing with you brothers in the future. It's
Absolutely.
very insightful and informative, and you're really helping the population to really understand the dynamics of contemporary politics. It's appreciated.
Thank you for calling in, Kev, to Melanated Politics. Peace.
All right, you brothers have a good one. Take care.
You too.
Possible 2020 Democratic contenders for president. That was a great phone call.
Awesome.
Especially when we talked about the possible contenders. Now, Beto O'Rourke, Joe Biden, Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, Cory Booker, Julian Castro,
yeah.
Sherrod Brown. Who else is out
There's
there?
Kristen Gillibrand. There's possible former mayor of New York. What is his name? Just throw me. I forgot.
The business guy.
I just saw him on the news cycle.
Michael Bloomberg. Bloomberg.
Thank you so much to the lovely ladies in the booth. Thank you, Poetess and Sheena. Sometimes
your producer has to step in and save your life.
Yes.
Michael Bloomberg. As a matter of fact, just to go there, we're going to stay on this. But Michael Bloomberg actually donated over $100 million to 24 different candidates. 21 different candidates won, and guess how many were women? 18.
That's going to help him.
Now, the problem with Bloomberg is former Republican, now independent. Will he run as an independent or will he run as a Democrat? In his own words, he's trying to figure that out right now. So we've just went over possible contenders for Donald Trump. Some have already literally thrown their hat in the race. We've talked prior about Bernie Sanders. You know, Bernie Sanders had this big wave, Feel the Burn, Elizabeth Warren, former, current senator of Massachusetts, former Harvard professor, et cetera. What do you think Bernie Sanders has a chance? And also, give me the pros and cons of Bernie Sanders, because there are so many African Americans that supported Bernie Sanders that felt the so-called burn. So, Mr. Harper, do the crowd a favor and go there about feeling the burn in Bernie Sanders.
Okay, look, I'm going to, full disclosure, I am a Democrat. Full disclosure. I vote Democrat, Democrat pretty much as long as I've been voting. And there's a reason why I've been voting Democrat.
Yes.
One, Democratic Party has the majority of my beliefs.
So what do you think about Bernie Sanders?
So let me go. I'm about to pivot to Bernie Sanders right now. Bernie Sanders, I've always had, I'm not going to say a love-hate. That's not the right word. I've always had conflicting feelings about Bernie Sanders because I do agree with a lot of his progressive policies.
Will his policies allow him to defeat Donald Trump?
No, because I don't think Bernie Sanders will.
You didn't mention Senator Harris also, but
Kamala Harris, of course. But let me get back to Bernie Sanders real quick, and I'll try to be short. Bernie Sanders, the problem I have with Bernie Sanders is that I agree with his progressive policies when it comes to Medicaid for all, when it comes to a fair wage, when it comes to going at the banks. I'm totally on board. This is my issue with Bernie Sanders, and it's not.
He is against reparations. That's mine. But
that's one. But I'm gonna take it back a little bit. I'll just speak generally. I think it's hard for a person like Bernie Sanders, and just be honest. If you come from a all-white state,
yes,
how are you going to govern a very diverse country? How are you going to talk to black and brown people? And a great example of that is a lot of people don't know this. When President Obama, I don't know if it was his first term or his second term, he went on, I think it was his first term. I think he went on air. He went on air talking about a book he gave a quote to, and it was from a progressive author. And he said the book was called How Obama Turned His Back on Progressive, or How Obama Let the Progressives Down. And he rode that a little bit. And Bernie Sanders said that maybe President Obama should be, there would be nothing wrong if he was primaried.
Wow.
And I felt like, man, that's coming from a real privileged place.
Okay.
And that's my biggest issue, because I don't think he puts Trump voters, and this is the thing, this is the biggest thing. He doesn't understand race like he needs to be the leader of his free world. Only reason why I say that is because when he says Trump voters, look, they're not racist. He says Trump voters aren't racist. I'm like, well, listen, Trump ran and won on a racist platform. So if they're not racist, they're comfortable voting for racists. And that's I don't know how you thread that needle. Complicit. Do I think some of his policies are on point? Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Now
But when it comes to black folks, and when it comes to our community, when it comes to our history, man, you got to be on point with that. And if you're not on point, I can't vote for you.
Now that's Bernie Sanders. Just like, improper fraction. You have to break down an improper fraction. Right. Break down Senator Harris and Cory Booker. Do they actually this is melanated politics. Melanated politics was created so we could expound on and communicate how politics literally affects the black community, and we are so proud that we have this platform to do this. And before I forget, a super special shout out to the one and only poetess and also Sheena.
Yes, indeed.
Now, Cory Booker, Senator, let me finish. Mm-hmm. Cory Booker, Senator Harris,
mm-hmm.
a lot of black people, they've been asking me, bottom line, do they have a chance to be the next president? Bottom line.
Yes, they do. I'm going to tell you why. And for those who don't know this, the majority of the Democratic base is black women. So it's your mom, your grandmother, your auntie. Black women are the backbone to, basically, I have to take this quote from Sarah Sanders. No, not Sarah Sanders.
No,
not Sarah Sanders. It's a sister on CNN with the shade. She used to be on Bernie's. Her last name is Sanders, though. Simone. I'm sorry. Sorry. I didn't mean to say Sarah. Simone Sanders. Simone Sanders. Man, I got to take this quote from her because I agree with her.
Almost regurgitated.
I know. Simone Sanders.
Wow.
Simone Sanders said that black women have to fall in love with you and white women have to like you in order to get the nomination. And I agree with that wholeheartedly, because if black women don't fall in love with you, you're not going to get it. And black women, the reason why...
Man, getting the email address is hard enough.
Hey. Hey. So with that said, Cory Booker has a chance. Kamala Harris has a chance. In my opinion, another person who has a chance is Sherrod Brown out of Ohio. He has roots in Cleveland. Beto O'Rourke, it's hard to say because he does have kind of an Obama factor as being kind of this aspirational type of candidate. But when it comes to being on the debate stage, I saw some of the debates with him and Ted Cruz. He did okay because ultimately it's going to come down to policy too. What are you going to do for the country? What are you going to do for the communities?
I have a big elephant in the question. I mean, elephant in the room type of question. Mm-hmm. All of these candidates, mm-hmm. do they have to cater to the majority white population, the so-called quote-unquote white vote? Do these candidates that we just mentioned, and also Democratic candidates that we have not mentioned, do they have to cater to the majority white vote in America to become elected while they continue progressiveness on different other type of platforms that they say, claim, and some actually seem to be about?
See, this was deep about this conversation because anybody else who looks at this will say, well, you guys are playing identity politics. You're talking about black, white, women, brown. I'm like, no. When you don't identify the difference in this country.
It's called America.
It's called America. Let's keep it 100. It's called America.
Don't call 1 + 1 15.
Yeah, exactly. So we're identifying what needs to happen.
Yes.
Basically, it's going to be a tough needle to thread. I don't think they need to cater to they don't need to cater to the sect of white Americans that are diehard Trump supporters, or the sect of or placating to white America that may have voted for Donald Trump, because there's a sect that voted for Obama and then voted for Donald Trump. What they need to do is just make the case and get people out there to vote, and catering to that, outlining and pointing out racism in this country, outlining and pointing out sexism in this country, outlining or pointing out income inequality in this country, and everything under the sun does not make it.
Let's stay on the top four. Joe Biden. Okay.
Joe Biden is solid. He has
Bernie Sanders. Beto O'Rourke.
Okay.
Elizabeth Warren. Do either one of these Democratic or independent candidates that opposite with the Democrat, do they have a chance? Do they have an opportunity to defeat Donald Trump in the 2020 elections?
Yes.
That's the bottom line. They have an opportunity? Because right now we're talking about Democratic candidates who may or may not go up against Donald Trump, because we can't just say Donald Trump will be reelected without mentioning who this guy is going up against. We can't do that without mentioning what's going on right now. The government is shut down.
True.
So we have to actually figure out what Democratic candidate, if they can or can't, will they be able to defeat Donald Trump in the 2020 elections, and if so, who are they?
Let me preface this. They have to go to the Democratic primary first, and the candidates who I think have it's early, but
it's saturated also.
It's saturated too, but it's early. The candidates early on, the candidates that have the best chance, in my opinion, of making it through the Democratic primary, being on top, is going to be Kamala Harris, Cory Booker, Sherrod Brown, Elizabeth Warren, and I'm going to throw one person in there that we didn't have on the list, Terry McCullough. Now, Terry McCullough, the former Virginia, he's
former DNC chair.
Former DNC chair. His governing record is on point.
Now, you just said Kamala and Cory Booker, right? Let's table this.
Okay.
We understand what President Obama, everything he went to, Jeremiah Wright, birtherism, them questioning everything he did, never received full-blown props for the economy being turned around. How he inherited the country economically speaking.
Absolutely.
How he inherited the country, how he left it when he exited.
Right.
The reason why the economy is good booming now is because of President Obama. So this is the thing. Now, we know there has been backlash to the first black president. So, look, is the United States of America, are they ready for a Cory Booker? Are they ready for Senator Harris? But are they ready for another black man, or in this case, the first black woman? Is America ready for another African American?
Yes.
On 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue?
Absolutely. And I'll be honest with you. This is where Kamala Harris probably has an advantage over a lot of the candidates, many of the candidates, because one, she's a black woman. She has I believe Caribbean, Jamaican descent and Indian descent. East Indian descent, but she is a black woman. And with that said, she's a former attorney, a former prosecutor.
So the people that didn't like Obama, that they're going to eat some cuisine
from
where she's from and go ahead and vote for
No. What's going to happen? What's going to happen is when you get to the states, she can cook though. If she
send me a plate, Senator Harris, if you're watching, send us a plate. It's in the new year.
Yeah, please come on the show. We like to have you on the show, definitely.
Cuisine.
Bring some food.
But go ahead though. But answer the question.
But yeah,
Kamala Harris or Cory Booker, with respect to those two wonderful individuals, is America ready for another African American to occupy 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue as it relates to the 2020 Democratic contenders, the Democratic ticket?
Yes, and yes. And let me just say this. The majority of America is ready. The majority of America is ready. Just like the majority of America voted for Hillary Clinton. Now, the key thing to this whole conversation is, can those candidates make it through the Electoral College? Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. And that answer is yes. They can make it through there. They can make it through there. I don't think they're going to win Ohio. But Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and then also maybe Arizona. Maybe Arizona, there's a glimmer of hope. So to answer your question, yes, because when you're talking about the majority of Americans, just like what Kevin said, the majority of Americans voted for Hillary Clinton But
the electoral college.
The electoral college.
She won actually by 3, regarding the popular vote,
yes.
She won by what? 3 million more votes than
Yes. And here's the thing, fun fact, the Republicans have not won a popular vote outright since 2004. That should tell you something. They didn't win in 2000. They didn't win in 2008. They didn't win the popular vote in 2012, and they didn't win the popular vote in 2016. The popular vote has been Democrat for the longest time. For the longest time, it started with when Bill Clinton won, both times. The Republicans have not won the popular vote, and that should tell you something. So when you say the majority of Americans, yes, the majority of Americans are probably ready. Right now, the majority of Americans are probably ready for black, brown, Asian. They're ready for the best qualified person. But the sect of Americans, where you're talking about the electoral college, because that's what we're talking about. We're talking about the Midwest, maybe some of the South. That's where it gets fascinating. That's where it gets interesting.
Well, so let's go ahead and wrap it up.
Okay.
Donald Trump will be reelected. The government is shut down to keep brown people out of this country,
yes.
to keep the majority population that is white.
Yes.
Who will be the Democratic contenders that have the audacity to challenge Donald Trump and, in their own words, represent America as it should be moving forward? I have been honored and privileged to bring you Melanated Politics along with David Harper. Thank you so much for tuning in. Do us a favor. Leave something in the comment section. It could be good, bad, positive, negative. We welcome everything, and I promise you, you have our word. We will respond instantaneously. Show your support to Morris Media by becoming a subscriber.
Yes,
we're
indeed.
looking forward to that as well.
Happy 2019. Thank you for watching our first show of the new year. Next week, more politics, more melanated politics. We're going to talk about the Congress and all the news that happened during the week. So thanks for tuning in. See you next week. Peace.
Melanated Politics.